Welcome, everyone, to the Scaling Smart podcast, where we bring together industry leaders, entrepreneurs, and innovators to discuss key insights, strategies, and their experiences that have driven success both for themselves and their customers. I'm Billy Mitchell, your host, and today I'm excited to introduce a special guest. We have Rachel Korn. She is the CGO, that is the Chief Growth Officer of Go Power EV, who Go Power provides cost-effective EV charging solutions for multifamily properties. That would be apartments and condos. Rachel, I appreciate you joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Likewise, it's going to be a great conversation. And just to kind of set the stage for our audience as well as you, we're going to dive deep into three primary locations. We're going to talk about you and your organization. We're going to talk about your industry and your ideal client. And then finally, kind of why everybody's here, just some growth and scale tactics that maybe you guys have used that you've seen success in, or areas that maybe didn't go so well. But going to be laid back, casual, going to have some good time. You ready to jump into it?
Sure.
Awesome. All right, let's start with getting to know you and your business. If you could, in 90 seconds, give us an overview of who you are, what you do, and why you do it. 90 seconds is tight, so feel free to take a little extra time.
Okay, great. So I'm Rachel Korn. I lead growth at Go Power EV. That includes sales, marketing, and business development. With that, I run all the go-to-market functions. Wait, can we pause for a second?
Sure. It'll
What was
still
the
record, and
question in
then
90 seconds? What was it in 90 seconds? I forgot
it's
the
all
question.
good. Hey, you're fine. Don't worry about it. It's just give us an overview of who you are in the organization.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll just edit. I'll be able to edit this too. So
Okay.
let's go ahead and I'll just re-ask the question, and then we'll jump into it. So
So I don't
don't
know that
stress
that's a
about it.
90-second question. Or do you want
It's
my
okay.
bio? Do you want my
It's
bio as well?
okay. Yeah, just
Okay.
what I want to get to know is you. So,
Okay, great.
talk about you, and then just so you know, a follow-up question I'm going to ask you. So don't answer, but it's a
Yeah.
follow-up is going to be, how did you get into this business? How'd you get into this work? That type of stuff. So it'll be a nice leeway. So if you want to start talking about Go EV Power, then let's start there. So, all right, let's get ready and awesome. All right, let's get to know you and your business. So, if you could give us a 90-second overview of what you do and why.
Great. So, Rachel Korn, I am the Chief Growth Officer at Go Power EV. I lead sales, marketing, and business development. Go Power EV makes EV charging equipment, software, and provides services and support for electric vehicle chargings in apartment buildings and condos.
Excellent. So, as the Chief Growth Officer, that's a unique role. I like the title. How did you get into that? Tell us a little bit about your history and what got you to this organization.
Great. So I have been a strategy business person from the get go. I spent many years at Bain and Company in strategy consulting, and then led a boutique diligence consulting firm looking at startups and valuing them. And then was recruited by one of the clients there to be the CEO of a telematics based automotive tracking solution, which is what I did for about 3 years. And then was approached by the CEO here of Go Power EV to lead all of the external growth functions at Go Power EV. And that's what I've been doing for the past 2.5 years.
Wow, that's an incredible background. I love all the leadership that roles that you've held. That's really interesting. Um, Tell me a little bit about as it pertains to your role in the organization. What are some of the challenges that you face in a daily, ongoing manner? What are some of those things that, you know, kind of uh, prevent growth or prevent, you know, success, and how are you overcoming those?
So the challenges in any startup is lack of resources. Huge opportunity in the market. We just don't have enough money, time, people to go after it. We're faced with a few large competitors that sell EV charging for many, many use cases, not specifically for multifamily, but just across the board. well-funded companies that do superchargers, that do destination charging, and then they tend to capture a lot of the attention. So, as a startup focused on one segment of the sphere, we have a lot of noise to overcome. And with that, we have to manage resources very, very carefully. So, our advantage over entrenched players is really doing things smarter, not beating them on the quantity, but beating them on the quality, and doing fewer things, but making them very well positioned and very well targeted at our target market.
Yeah, that's incredible. I imagine as well being uh, nimble and thin like that, you probably wear a few hats and
Yeah.
do a lot of work on an ongoing manner. That's very interesting. So with that, and that's actually a really good jump into the next section. Let's talk about your ideal client. So obviously, multifamily properties, apartments, HOAs, stuff like that. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little introduction into who you're selling to, and maybe even list off a few of the challenges that they're facing that you're able to overcome for them.
Sure. So the ideal customer profile is a property owner that has 50 to 250 multifamily properties, and that can be apartments, condos. Uh, they could be anywhere in the country. Specific geographies that are better for us tend to be in places where there are a lot of electric vehicles, because an owner will be convinced to put in the infrastructure if the residents have electric vehicles or are planning to buy some. So you can imagine the states that have a lot of EVs are California, Washington, Colorado, New York, Massachusetts, Atlanta. Tends to be around the coast and around the southern border as well. Texas has quite a few. Florida has a lot. So it tends to be at this stage of the game concentrated in a few geographies.
Okay.
But of course, this will expand nationally as the price of electric vehicles drops and as used EVs come to the market. So I recently saw that you can buy a used EV now that's less than 4 years old for about $20,000. And that
Wow.
really, yeah, that is really changing the game. And there are still federal incentives for that can make it even cheaper. So the market is going to turn over very quickly with prices dropping.
Wow.
Um, your second question was what are their problems?
Yeah, what are some of the challenges that they're facing and you're able to solve?
Yeah. So the main challenges that they have are around residents who have electric vehicles or are planning to buy electric vehicles. And the way this works is if I have an EV and I'm shopping for an apartment, if that apartment building does not have EV charging, I am probably not going to go to that one. I'm going to go to the one down the street who has EV charging. It's really, really simple. And the same with retention. If I'm a tenant in a property and I'm looking to buy an EV, and if there's no charging that's convenient in my property, I'm going to probably switch. So people with EVs today tend to be very attractive tenants, higher income, reliable, and so landlords are very much want to keep those tenants and to attract those. And so the value proposition or the problem we're trying to solve is how to provide that access in a cost-effective way and relatively quickly. Some of the challenges that they typically face with other solutions is EVs can consume, or EV charging can consume a lot of power at one time, and buildings may not have that amount available at any point in time. So our solution was built specifically to address that. We defer the charging to overnight, and we have software that manages the overall load as to not to exceed what the limits are. So with our solution, typically one would not need to upgrade the electrical infrastructure, which is the most expensive thing out there.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And it's funny, until you said it, I didn't think about the fact that, an apartment owner would be interested in having you install your system because it's going to be more attractive to renters. That's a really good,
Mm-hmm.
selling proposition. That's
Yep.
that's awesome. Um, Obviously, as you've mentioned already, you've got a really competitive market because there's a lot of big players out there. I can see and understand the differentials that you're making and bringing to the market. So let's talk a little bit about the industry as a whole. Um, And just like any other industry, I think it's changing super quick. So let's look at the next 3 to 5 years. Where is your industry going? How's it changing?
So there's a big sort of a political background to all of this
Sure.
story. I'll just mention it very quickly without getting into detail. So the previous administration created a lot of funding for EV infrastructure, but it was primarily geared towards fast charging along highways. And the segment of apartment buildings, which is where 40% of the population lives, was not addressed with this. So in the current administration, that piece of funding goes away, but it doesn't really affect our segment because we never actually had it in the first place. However, there are quite a few local and state subsidies that are geared towards apartment buildings because they realize that that is where people charge.
Hmm.
And those are actually growing in multiplying. So one of the things that we're seeing is that on a local basis, government, utilities, agencies are very much in favor of supporting EV charging in what is called MDUs, multi-dwelling units. So that's one of the trends. The other trend is that EVs are getting very, very inexpensive and will continue to be so. And especially, again, in light of the current administration's tariffs, new gas cars are going to be a lot more expensive than before. And therefore, starting to look at the used EV markets would be an attractive thing to do. And those are getting cheaper. So those would become a better option.
Yeah.
Um, you asked about competitors.
Sure. Yeah. Let's dive a little bit into your competitors. So, what are some of the challenges they're facing? I think the funding obviously is going to be an interesting one. I didn't even think about the fact that the funding from the previous administration was earmarked for a specific, you know, um,
Yeah,
section or road. So good news, it's not going to impact you, but I would assume your competitors probably are going to be impacted.
they for sure will be impacted. Yes, yeah, it will affect us less.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
yeah,
Yeah. All right. So I think we've got a good foundation for who you are, your organization, and the industry as a whole. Let's start to go narrow in a little bit on kind of that meat and potatoes, the growth and scale. So currently, as of today, some of the tactics and campaigns that you're working on, how are you guys achieving new customer growth?
so we are laser focused on this one segment, which helps a lot because our competitors are diversified and they're spending a lot of money everywhere. We are laser focused and we can capture this category of multifamily. So we do that with a wide multi-tiered campaign. Obviously, brand awareness, growth marketing, lead generation, and sales and partnerships. So let's start with brand awareness. We go to industry trade shows. We do webinars like this. I participate in a lot of webinars, industry events, and so do some of my colleagues that essentially are intended to educate the audience, intended to educate. We have a lot of partners in this effort: utilities, housing authorities, states, cities. So the some of the educational effort are intended to educate all of those co-conspirators, so to say, as well as property owners. So that's on the awareness side, and obviously social things like that. On the lead gen, we have access to databases, and we're building a lot of AI based intelligent tools to essentially prospect who those people are. Our market is pretty narrow, but it's a large market. And using some of the new AI tools and AI enrichment tools, we can really get to good lists of companies in the mid tier, in the medium sized market, property ownership, and get to key decision makers there. So it's very intelligent, going after leads and prospects in that segment, and doing an intelligent marketing campaign with A/B testing, different versions, to try to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, that's incredible. So, um, and I like that you've got a broad range going, right? It's obviously positive that you have a very niche market that helps you to stand out and you can own that market. But being able to um, market to them across a lot of different channels in a cohesive manner is going to be very powerful. So let's talk about some of the tactics that maybe didn't work that well. And you obviously had hoped so, and you learned some lessons. So
Yeah.
what are some client acquisition tactics that didn't go the way you thought they might?
We had a strategy at the beginning that was more grassroots that went along this. Basically said we have a live installation in, a certain address. Let's go, and it's doing really well. Let's go and canvass all the properties around there and leave flyers there, informational booklets, and basically tell them go and visit your neighbor, see how well they're doing, and you'll be left out if you don't do it. Um, it never worked because we couldn't get them to the right decision maker.
Oh,
It would get stuck with a receptionist, property manager, and get tossed, um, and never actually get to. It's a relatively high level message,
mhm.
because it's retention and acquisition, and it never got to the right person.
That's
Uh,
very interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
I could, what's interesting about that is historically, my company has worked with a lot of roofing companies
mm-hmm.
and exterior enhancement type companies, and canvassing a neighborhood whenever they're doing the project is obviously very successful. But to your point, you're talking to the decision maker, and
Yeah,
oftentimes at these apartments, multi-housing locations, you're talking to residents or managers, and so
yeah,
your audience isn't actually on site. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah. The audience isn't on site, and the person who is on site doesn't have any incentive to pass it along.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that was one that didn't work. Other things that didn't work were along the lines of messaging. We played a lot with messaging. So at first we went in and we thought that one of the biggest pain points is the actual installation process that can be complicated. So we came out and our first value proposition is we're a turnkey installer for you. We'll take care of the building permit, talking to the utilities and getting approvals for them, talking to the AHJ, getting electricians on board. There's 6 or 7 parties one needs to coordinate with
Sure.
to get this done. It turned out that was important, but it was a secondary value proposition. The first sort of value proposition was how much is this going to cost me, and what if any revenue upside I will get from it.
Yeah.
And so we did a lot of testing on the messaging, and in the end prioritized low cost, prioritized the no need to upgrade infrastructure, the value proposition of acquisition and retention, and deprioritize the installation piece of it, which, while is important, is sort of downstream from what I just mentioned.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's good that you took a moment to listen to your audience, and pivot to a messaging that spoke more directly to what their needs and desires are. So I love that. Let's a couple more questions in this topic, and then we'll move on. But how about partnerships? So you mentioned a lot of uh, governmental partners.
Mhm.
How about any form of other, marketing, sales, referral type partners?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of, just to sort of give background, in this process, there are a lot of influencers, really, like more than any other industry. So the utilities usually have rebates and incentives, and they do their own marketing to multifamily owners. So getting on the board on the side of the utilities, so when they do their marketing, they say, "Oh, look at this solution." By the way, the same with AHJ. It's housing authorities. Again, they have influence. They do their own marketing. You have to piggyback off of what they do. And the same with utilities. So all of these people are very important to partner with. They provide their own marketing. They provide subsidies. So it's important. Often they have kind of approved vendor lists. So you have to get on those. So that's number one. Number two are associations that relate to property owners. So there's quite a few real estate associations. There are associations for HOAs, and all of those folks are important. They do trade shows, so it's important to go to those trade shows, important to speak at those trade shows. So anybody who talks to this community is important as well. In terms of direct partnerships for sales, for lead gen, things like that, there's a few ones that we're talking to. Number one are there is a segment of energy consultants that are hired by the property to essentially figure out what is the best solution and how do I do that. So they make recommendations. They also install. So we have a few national partnerships with them that are working very well for us, where they go into a property. They will not recommend us for every property, but where there's a good product market fit, we get good leads from them. So those relationships we've cultivated very well, and the next one is from very local rental association or housing rental associations. So they tend to go by city, by county, where they have actual live meetings, and they sometimes have an annual sort of trade show, but more of the time it's just lunch and learns, webinars, golf tournaments, things like that. So those have helped with lead generations quite a bit, partnering with those organizations.
How about builders? Have you ever found partnerships
Yeah,
with builders to be successful?
yeah. Partnerships with builders are great as well, and we've pursued those. They've been very fruitful for us. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, I might actually know a couple builders that I would like to introduce you to. So,
Great.
but that's for another time. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's do one more question, and then I've got a lightning round, which is fun way to end the call, where I just ask you a few questions and you say the first thing that comes to your mind. But before we get there, what's one of the biggest challenges you faced in your career? How has it shaped you, and how does it change? How did it change the way you do business?
One of the biggest challenges has been moving from a corporate environment, which I was at before the startups, where there were a lot of resources and a lot of people who were very skilled and trained at what they do and are very specialized in an area. In a startup, you have many more generalists, people who may not have done social media marketing or digital marketing for 20 years, and
Yeah,
know every single metric and every single KPI for it. They're a general marketer, so they do a little bit of trade shows, they do a little bit of collateral, they do a little bit of everything, but they're not super good at everything. And you have to be able to train them and motivate them to learn and get better at the specific things that's at hand right now. So today, maybe digital marketing. Tomorrow, it may be an event that we're doing, and they're going to have to get really good at event marketing. And the good thing is today there are so many tools to learn. With Gen AI and just things on the internet as well, that it should be relatively easy with somebody who's eager to learn to actually learn how to do things. But it's obviously time lost, and having to relearn tools, having to work through mistakes that are made. So that's a challenge, and with that is a challenge of how to motivate people to keep at it, to work hard, to continuously learn. So it's great with some people. I've had some people who that did not work for them at all, and they didn't have that mentality, and they just did not fit
sure.
with the organization very well.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Well, this has been good. I really appreciate your time and answering these questions. I want to jump into the lightning round. So, real simple, real easy. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind. You ready?
Yes,
Awesome. Coffee or tea?
coffee.
Same here. I just finished my third one. What's one tool or system you rely on to keep your organization running smoothly?
I would say Gen AI actually these
All
days.
right, I love it. Biggest trend, well, I think we've talked about this, but I'll ask it anyways. Biggest trend you think is going to shape your industry in the next 5 years?
The price drops in electric vehicles.
Yeah, I think that's going to be huge. All right, favorite book, podcast, or resource that has influenced you in your business growth?
Podcast is the Barry Weiss podcast with the Free Press.
I'm a fan of Barry. Awesome. A business decision. Actually, no, I'm going to go to the next one because I like this one even better. What's one bucket list item that you've already checked off?
Triathlon.
Nice. And what's one goal you're still working towards?
Doing it better.
It's awesome. I love it. Well, Rachel, this has been wonderful. I'm sure our listeners are going to be really engaged and interested in what you had to say. If they want to connect with you, what's one of the best ways to do that?
Rachel.corn at gopowerev.com.
Awesome. All right, everybody, that's a wrap for this episode of Scaling Smart. I appreciate you joining us today. I'm your host, Billy Mitchell, and thanks for tuning in to the Scaling Smart podcast, where we have conversations with real people with real stories who have learned how to scale smart.